Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to MediByte. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden world of fungi. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mushrooms, maybe some mold on old bread, but it's so much more than that. These are incredibly complex organisms that can cause everything from a simple rash to a life-threatening illness. So let's get into it and break down what you really need to know. All right, here's our game plan for today. We're going to follow the entire life cycle of a fungal infection. First up, we'll figure out what fungi actually are. Then we'll see how they can sneak into our bodies and start causing trouble. After that, we'll look at the different ways these infections are sorted, who's most likely to get sick, and finally, the really important part, how doctors figure it all out and get you treated.
Okay, so first things first, when I say the word fungus, what pops into your head? For most people, it's mushrooms, maybe some yeast for bacon, but on a biological level, what are they really?
Well, here is something that might surprise you. Fungi aren't plants, and they're definitely not animals. They are so incredibly unique that they have their own biological kingdom, all to themselves. And this isn't just a fun fact for a trivia night. It's actually crucial because it explains why they behave so differently inside our bodies compared to, say, bacteria or viruses. Now, when it comes to infections, we're usually dealing with fungi in one of two basic forms. On one side, you've got yeasts. These are just simple, single little round cells. But on the other side, you have molds, which are much more complex. They grow in these long, thin, thread-like structures called hyphae. And get this, some fungi can actually switch back and forth between these two forms, which, as you can imagine, makes them especially tricky to deal with. So we've established that fungi are pretty much everywhere in our environment. But how does just being around them turn into a full-blown infection? Let's trace that exact path from the outside world right into our bodies.
It really all begins with these things called spores. Just think of them as microscopic seeds that are constantly floating in the air we breathe and hiding in the soil under our feet. We're breathing them in and getting them on our skin all the time. But here's the thing. For most of us, our immune system is like a top-notch security guard. It sees these spores and just gets rid of them. No problem. An infection only really kicks off when, for some reason, those spores manage to sneak past our defenses and set up shop, usually in our lungs or on our skin.
Right, but once an infection starts, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Let's dig into how doctors classify them, because that tells them exactly what they're up against. So the first big way we categorize these is by location. A localized infection is pretty much what it sounds like. It's stuck in one spot. Think of something like athlete's foot or a nail fungus. These can even happen when you're healthy, maybe if you take antibiotics that disrupt your body's natural balance. But then you have systemic infections, and these are a whole different ballgame. They get deep inside the body, affecting major organs like your lungs, your liver, or even your brain. These are the really serious ones, and they almost always happen to people whose immune systems are already struggling. And the other really important way to classify them comes down to us, the host. Opportunistic infections are exactly what they sound like. They see an opportunity, a weakened immune system, and they seize it, often becoming very aggressive and spreading super fast. Primary infections, though, are different. They're caused by fungi that are tough enough to make even a perfectly healthy person sick. These often start when you breathe in spores from a fungus that only lives in a certain part of the world. This brings us to a really, really critical question. We've used this phrase, weakened immune system, a few times now, so who exactly are we talking about? Who is most vulnerable to these serious, opportunistic infections? And this quote really gets to the heart of the matter. It's not that these fungi are unstoppable superpathogens. Their real power, their real danger, comes from their ability to exploit a body that just can't put up a good fight. So what kinds of things can weaken our immune defenses? Well, this slide lays it out perfectly. On one hand, you've got powerful medications, things like chemotherapy for cancer, steroids, or the anti-rejection drugs someone needs after an organ transplant. These are literally designed to turn down the immune system. And on the other hand, you have medical conditions that do the weakening for them, things like advanced HIV, severe burns, diabetes, or certain types of cancer. All of these can unfortunately leave the door wide open for these fungi. Okay, so we've got the what, the how, and the who. Now let's switch gears and get into the practical side of things. How do doctors actually figure out if a fungal infection is what's going on? And what can they do about it? And that is the million-dollar question for the medical team, right? Getting a clear diagnosis is absolutely key, especially since the symptoms like a fever or a cough can look a whole lot like other, more common illnesses. Honestly, diagnosing these infections is kind of like detective work. It always starts with asking questions. Where have you traveled recently? That could be a huge clue. What's your medical history? Then they move on to gathering evidence. They'll take a sample, maybe some blood or tissue, and send it to the lab. There, they can try to grow the fungus in a culture or look for it directly under a powerful microscope. And today, we even have high-tech blood tests that can spot the fungus's antibodies or even its unique DNA.
Now for the good news. We have an arsenal of drugs designed specifically to kill fungi. For a simple skin issue, a topical cream might be all you need. But for those really serious, systemic infections that get deep inside the body, the treatment involves powerful antifungal medications, either as pills or, more often, given directly through an IV.
Just take a look at this table. It gives you a sense of some of the heavy hitters. You see that one at the top, amphotericin B? It's a workhorse. It can kill most types of fungi, but it can also be really tough on the body, potentially causing kidney problems. Each of these drugs has a specific target and its own set of risks. That's why treating a serious fungal infection is such a delicate balancing act, one that your medical team manages incredibly closely.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that as modern medicine gets better and better, with amazing drugs and life-saving transplants, we've sort of paradoxically made people more vulnerable to these opportunistic fungi. And that makes understanding who is at risk and why more important than it has ever been. It's the first and most critical step to keeping yourself and your loved ones safe. And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of fungal infections. I really hope this explainer helped make this complicated topic a little bit clearer. If you found this useful, do us a favor and hit that like button, share it with someone who might be interested, and of course, make sure you subscribe to MediByte for more explainers on health and medicine. Thanks so much for watching.